Welcome to the Addison Bowen Podcast, where we talk about what it actually takes to hit your first six or multi-six figures in business. I'm Addison, certified clinical hypnotherapist and online business coach for entrepreneurs. And 3 years ago, I decided that nursing wasn't for me, dropped out of nursing school, and dove into the online space. From free hypnosis audios to unfiltered conversations and business advice, this is the space for you to take radical responsibility towards creating your dream business. Let's dive in. Hi guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have Brittany Hoopes, who is a manifestation hypnotherapist and coach. I'm so excited to talk to Brittany just so we can see where our beliefs and values align with manifestation and hypnotherapy. I just think this is going to be such a fun conversation. So just a little bit about Brittany. She helped multi-million-dollar entrepreneurs, professional authors, TV and movie actors, and more overhaul their mindset to manifest their next level, all through the power of hypnotherapy, which you guys know I love this conversation in general, so I'm so excited. And she does work with one-on-one clients as a certified hypnotherapist, and she's helped hundreds of people around the world to completely transform her life. So I'm so excited to hear a little bit more about her story, and where you guys can find her, and then just a little bit more about manifestation, as well as using manifestation to grow your business and hit your first six figures. So hi, welcome.
Hello, Addison. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. I would love to hear, because I was looking through the bio you sent over and I was like, oh my gosh, you have so many things here that you've manifested, like paying off over 100K in student loans. You were cast on a hit TV show, you married your soulmate, all of those things. So I would love to hear just, a little bit about your manifestation journey and a little bit more about you so people can really understand how you got into this space, what made you decide to do hypnotherapy, and just a little bit about your manifestations too, because I think it's fun.
Yeah, it really is fun. And, you got to practice what you preach. That's what I feel, at least. And I consider myself very lucky that I sort of discovered manifestation my freshman year in college when I was at NYU. And as soon as I sort of learned about the law of attraction, law of assumption, manifestation, there's so many different universal laws that kind of fall under that element of spirituality. I was like, oh, this, I always intuitively knew that this was kind of how the world worked, but I didn't really know. I didn't have language to put to it. And so that was like 17 years ago, if that dates me. But, of course, I didn't become a manifestation hypnotherapist then. I just learned about it, practice it, put it into practice, learned more about it. But it really wasn't until I found myself completely deep in the deepest throes of depression did I ever consider becoming a hypnotherapist, or really discovering hypnotherapy as a modality in order to manifest. Now, I think you and I could agree, depression does not seem like something very high vibe and aligned and, things like that. Look, in the moment, I thought it was the worst possible thing that could ever happen to me. And it was in that moment. But now looking back, I could realize, wow, if I hadn't become depressed, if I wasn't laying there in bed one day and I just randomly remembered how a hypnotist visited my high school and it could help you in your mind. And I thought, well, let's Google hypnotherapy for depression and see what that's all about. If all those things wouldn't have lined up and happened, I wouldn't have discovered hypnosis. I wouldn't have completely did a complete 180 on my depression and healed the depression completely within a month. I wouldn't have thought, wait, this feels like magic. And yet I know it isn't. I'm an educated gal. I want to learn how this really works. I wouldn't have gotten, certified in hypnotherapy just for fun. And then I wouldn't have realized, actually, I really love this. And I love even more so helping other people with this. So I'm going to decide to start my own business. Launched a little side business. It blew up within 6 months. I'd replaced my income of when I used to work at Instagram, which is where I worked before I became a hypnotherapist, completely replaced my income. And the rest, kind of is history. And it's, here in recent years where I've kind of taken my love for manifestation and those tenets and realized, wow, if you want to manifest something, which manifest is just achieving your goals, it's aligning yourself with the life that you want to create. If you want to manifest something, the tools that can allow you to do that perfectly align with hypnotherapy and what we do during hypnotherapy by releasing subconscious blocks, visualization, affirmations, subconscious programming. Those go hand in hand. And so that's when I decided, well, you know what? That's going to be my focus. I'm going to be a manifestation hypnotherapist.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And you said 18 years that you've been in business.
No, actually, I'm studying manifestation for 17 years. I've been in business. Let's see, when was that? I started my business part-time in 2021. So several years now. Went full-time early 2022. Manifesting my business and the growth that I saw in my business was a huge manifestation for me. I'd been wanting to start a business for like 10 years up until that point, but finally got into that aligned mindset where I thought, you know what, I can actually do this, believe that I can do it, overcome that block of thinking, oh, entrepreneurship is for a different kind of person than somebody like me. I'm just a corporate gal. Like, no, you had to kind of tear away that belief system and say, no, I can actually do this. Well, wouldn't you know, when you align and you create that belief system, which I'm sure you see with you and your clients, that things start moving quite quickly, right? Did that, started my business, launched it full time, then manifested being on my favorite TV show, which was a CBS TV show, Big Brother. I'd applied for, 6 years prior to making it on the 7th year that I applied. But you know what I did the 7th year? I did something very different that 7th year. That was the year I was a hypnotherapist. And so I thought, well, let's apply hypnotherapy to this. Here I was taking the physical action of applying to this TV show for 6 years prior. Didn't hear, jack squat, never got on the show. But the 7th year, I decided, you know what? I need to actually believe that I can get on. I know enough about how the subconscious mind works. I need to believe that this is possible for me, that they're looking for somebody just like me, that I would be a huge asset, that I would do well at this show. I needed to instill that belief system, even though it wasn't there. So again, it's not enough to just take the action. It's not enough to just take the action if your belief system's not aligned with that action. It's not what we would call a vibrational match to that action, right? Your success is at one vibration, has one belief system, has one set of feelings, and yet your actions are at another. They're like parallel to one another. They're never going to align. You got to get your belief system up to match your actions. And so that's exactly what I did. I used hypnotherapy. Every night, I would affirm to myself, I'm a house guest on BB24, Big Brother 24, which was the season I was on. And at first, it felt like, I always give this example that it feels like, putting on a new pair of tennis shoes. Like, they're brand new, but they kind of hurt and they rub and ow, you get a blister, the first couple times you wear them, right? It doesn't feel right. It felt like I was lying to myself. I'm a house guest on BB24. Like, no, I'm not. I applied 6 years. They never called me back, right? It didn't feel real. Well, that's what you have to do with the subconscious mind, right? You know this. It's repetition. You have to take that thought and you have to soften it. And that's why we get in the theta brainwave state where we reprogram our subconscious, is that we can reaffirm to ourselves and soften those beliefs. And through that repetition again and again and again, affirming something, you then begin to soften the resistance that you had around it. And all of a sudden I'm practicing that. I'm continuing that, a couple days, weeks, months. I can't remember the timeline exactly, but I softened that thought to where I thought, well, gosh, they're always looking for some quirky gal. I'm kind of that. Me, there's always, I know what character I would be on this show, and I think I would fit in. Or they've never had a hypnotherapist on the show. That's kind of an interesting thing, right? You can see I sort of started to soften that belief a little bit. And then, of course, as I continued with the hypnosis each night, reaffirming, visualizing myself, getting that call I was going to be on the show, just really amping up my internal subconscious belief that I could manifest this. By the end, I was like, oh, baby, they're going to call me. Like I wasn't even surprised when the call came because I just knew it. I knew that deep internal certainty that it would be true. And, wouldn't you know, that is the year where I did get the call and I did make it all the way. And I was one of 16 out of hundreds of thousands that made it on the show. And I didn't manifest the win. I will tell you this is my regret. I wish I would have focused on manifesting winning that show as opposed to just getting on. Notice how my affirmation was just, I am a house guest on BB24. It wasn't that I won BB24. Wish, looking back on it, regret that. Wish I could have, I could have affirmed the win, but I ended up getting 4th, which is pretty good. And that's just kind of how it's applied to all of these manifestations, whether it be growing your business to hit your first 6 figures, right? You have to build up that belief system, whether it be meeting your soulmate, whether it be, anything you desire and want to create, you have to make sure that your mind's on board, and hypnotherapy helps you do that.
I love what you said around the action. Like, you were taking the action for 6 years and you still, weren't getting
Not enough.
right?
We see that all the time, don't you, Addison? We see when we
yeah.
work with people. I know I see it when I work with my clients too, that it's like, what? I'm taking all this action. I'm putting so much effort and energy into this. I'm trying, which we know trying as hypnotherapists. To try is to fail. I tell you to try to open your eyes. I know you will not, because that is instruction to the subconscious mind that that there could be the possibility of failure. And so we see so much hustle and grind and trying and efforting with this action. But if it's not aligned to the vibration of what you're wanting to create, and what I mean by that is, think of what you want to create. Let's use the example of hitting your first 6 figures. How do you think you will feel when you will hit your first 6 figures? Maybe it's a sense of relief. Maybe it's a sense of freedom. Maybe if it's a sense of like excitement and joy. Only you will know what feeling you think that's going to create when you check that dashboard and you see, oh my gosh, I've crossed that 6-figure mark. I want you to visualize that. I want you to identify the emotion associated with that. Ding, ding, ding. That's your vibration. Okay. That's where we want you to feel now, and get to a place where you can believe that now, that makes you a vibrational match. So let's just say it is relief or freedom, or, any sort of emotional feeling, right? We want to find ways to access that emotion now and infuse our actions with that emotion now, in order for it to be aligned with, in order for it to be that sort of easy, effortless, inspired action that we want to take. Because that's where you're going to see the results. Otherwise, you're just spinning your wheels.
Yeah, I love this conversation, because this is what I say in my content all the time around, you can tweak your messaging so much, but it's not going to create results for you if you're subconscious and conscious. There's incongruency there. And so I think I just want to hit home for everyone that's watching this. Like, it shouldn't be so much effort. Like, every, day you shouldn't be waking up and be like, what do I have to say in my messaging today to get people to buy? And like, maybe I need to tweak this. So she said that, like, that means maybe I should launch this. Like, your business should be a little bit more effortless, and it's not always going to be easy, but it should be easier. And if you're constantly feeling that resistance around content and doing more, and, it's exactly like you said with I think your show is a great example of 6 years of action that then, aligning your subconscious with that desire then created it like that, like almost instantly for you. So
I do anything differently? No, I didn't, other than get my mindset on board.
Yeah.
Other than, I took the same sort of action. If anything, I'll tell you this, my audition tape was, it broke all the rules. They say, make sure you have an interesting background. This is the background that I had. Clear white wall right behind me. I think I wore beige too. Like, the most boring thing you could imagine. I broke all the rules, yet my mindset was so aligned to what I was doing that actually it allowed some flexibility for that action to not be quote unquote perfect, and yet still be enough. Right? Whereas before, I would say my videos that I made the 6 years prior were probably objectively better videos. And yet I was showing up in this vibration of, oh, pick me, but I don't believe I can be picked. People pick up on that, folks. Like, you can tell that energy, right? And I love that you brought up kind of messaging, because I think this applies in a messaging sense, right? We attract our clients. When we share stories, when we talk, when we teach, whatever we might be doing online, we are emitting a vibration. And therefore, clients who are a vibrational match to you are the ones that want to work with you, right? And so I think that's also another way of looking at, like, okay, what clients do I want to work with? And how can I find that vibration within myself? So, like, we're just the exact match. And I kind of love it because whenever I work with clients, it's like and I'm not even like saying this to boast or anything, but like every client I work with is like my dream client. Like we so jive because it's like and that's how I know like, oh, my vibration for what I'm putting out there. Like there's not many manifestation hypnotherapists. It's not so much of a thing that has caught on yet. Although I say, mark my words right now, you give it five-ish years, we're going to see this come up more and more and more, especially given the recent developments in neuroscience around hypnotherapy and its connection to manifestation. But I know the people that come to work with me, it's like we're so on that same vibration. And, and that's what's nice. That's how I know that they've already that we can work to hone that vibration to now be aligned with what they want to create, which is always a really fun experience for all involved.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, I feel the same way about hypnotherapy. I'm like, there wasn't a single business coach that was doing it 4 years ago.
And now it's like all over the place, right? We're trendsetters, Addison, trendsetters.
I know, but I love it.
Yeah, I do too.
I feel like I know in my audience, we're speaking to people who are strategy queens. Like they are 100% on that end of, I've done the strategy. I know the strategy. I'm tweaking my messaging, but things are just not quite working out the way that I want it to. And that's what I do with my clients is we rewire those beliefs. And, like you said, you see those really fast shifts, but I love this idea of taking this from more of a manifestation lens. So let's say like an entrepreneur comes to you and they are like, Brittany, I want to, manifest my first 6 figures. I, have all this expertise. I have all these certifications. I want to make more money. I'm doing all the right things. I'm tweaking my strategy. I'm doing my messaging, blah, 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 blah. Like, where do you start with them in the manifestation realm? Because obviously they're already doing all the right things. There's, like you said, a vibrational or maybe a subconscious block there. Which I would call it a subconscious block, but I love the conversation of the vibrational match. It's all language. Like we're so aligned with what we do.
Yep. It is.
But yeah, tell me where you would start with someone. Like what process would you take them through to get closer to that desire?
Well, I want to make it really clear from the get-go that just because you're manifesting growth in your business does not mean that strategy needs to go out the window. No. Strategy has a place here. It absolutely does. But here's where I want to sort of parse out here, right? We could probably find a coach. I know we could find a coach that says, oh, it's email list, grow your email list. No, it's Reels. You have to grow on Reels, right? There is a coach that touts particular strategies as the strategy that will, and then they make all these, promises and it's marketing and blah, blah, blah. And so what I like to do when I'm working with clients, because I have a fair amount of clients that are looking to grow their business, whether it's their first 6 figures or it might be their, their first million or their first 5 million. I work with clients all over the spectrum. They've tried all the strategies. And usually what happens is they get locked into the marketing of some really brilliant coach who has really convinced them that their strategy is the one. And so really they're really good at marketing, right? Oh, it's so convincing, right? And, hey, I'm not trying to I'm not, this is good. This is good for them. And they should do this, right? Because their strategy is going to help a lot of people and they have all the testimonials, right? So you see all the evidence. Look how their strategy has helped so many people. Well, I would bet you that every single testimonial that they have is because that strategy was in alignment with that particular person. And there are probably double the amount of people where that strategy was not in alignment with them. So when I have a client that's come to me and say, I've done all the things, I've tried all the strategy and nothing's working, we need to stop looking for the answer outside them. Who's the coach? What's the magical strategy that's going to be the one that works this time? Stop looking for it outside them and start looking for the strategy and the alignment that is inside them. What made you want to do this business? What makes you want to get up and sit in front of your computer and create today? What's an idea that you had that maybe no other coach told you to do, but just sounds really fun and really amazing to you? Like, I want you to get back in tune with your inner wisdom, your intuition, your alignment, which means what brings you joy, what brings you happiness, what sparks your creativity, and stop trying to find it outside yourself. And this is where I think hypnotherapy can really come in handy, because we know that when you quiet the conscious mind and you go down into that theta brainwave state, you enter the subconscious mind, which is where your intuition resides. And
it's
so
like
I do
Google.
a lot.
Oh, you just ask a question and you're like, oh, duh, that's the answer. It's crazy.
Right? Yeah. It really is your own internal Google, right? You just type it in, you do your hypnotherapy. And so I like to do a lot of sessions where I bring in inner guides, or I bring in, there's so many different ways you can go about this. But hey, we got this issue, we got this business problem. Like, let's bring it into the internal part of you that knows what your path is. I use this analogy a lot, but it kind of reminds me of the movie The Hunger Games, right? You got all these people that they're like, aren't they in the Hunger Games? They kind of like line up in a circle outside, and then they all just rush into the center to try to get their, weapons or whatever it might be. I don't want you going after somebody else's pot of gold. I want you on the path to your pot of gold. And I think a lot of that usually comes back to, of course, each individual is different, but I see this pattern come up of thinking that other people hold the answer and I just need to copy what they did. But you know what the other people are failing to teach you when they teach you their strategy? They're failing to mention the alignment that they were in that made that thing successful for them. You feel the difference? Like, they were in alignment. They were really lit on fire by their email list building or the social media platform or something like that. And that's what helped create their success. And so what I want to do with you is that I want you to get back in touch with your own alignment, what brings you joy, what makes you feel really creative and fired up. And what you're probably going to discover is that you have a different way of explaining things. You have a different way of doing things. You might not follow all the traditional little, strategy things that the other person says, but you take what resonates with you and then you create what you want to fill in the rest. And that is like when I can get my client to move from this outside in process and have it be an inside out process instead, that's when things really start to soar.
I call that coming home to yourself with my clients.
Coming home to yourself, that is it.
On the same wavelength, but it's like let go of that one coach that said you have to have a group program before you do one-on-one, or vice versa, or you can't launch the membership, or you have to do it this way. And
the intentions of that coach, I'm sure, are very pure because they were in alignment. They did that thing and they saw success. And so they're like, now I'm going to bottle up what I did and sell that. And that makes a lot of sense.
And it works.
But what they're failing to bottle up is that they were in alignment, and therefore your alignment may be different than theirs. And so we want to find yours. And then we can do, if once you get in alignment and what their strategy still seems really good and resonates with you, go right ahead. I know it's going to work for you, but you can't, it's the coming home to yourself. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. So that's like the very first step with your clients, where you're like, cut the noise. Let's focus on like what's in alignment with you, what you want to do, what brings you joy, what makes you happy. And like also what I like coming back to the why in your business. Like, you're here for impact. You're here to impact people. Like, when I even just take a second and be like, oh my gosh, like I get to sit here and have conversations like this on a podcast all day. It's like, wow, you know what I mean? Like, it takes you back to a really good feeling internally.
Sure does.
So what's like the next step? Like, obviously at this point, clients already have an idea of their desires. They want to create the 6 figures. They want more money. So first it's like cutting the noise, coming back to themselves. And then where do you take the next piece of manifestation?
You bring up something really valuable. So this kind of this example that you gave before, which was like, I'm trying all the strategies and nothing's working. They've already sort of identified what is a problem, right? And so then we can just jump right in. If they're just kind of like, I don't know, right? We have to make sure that they know what they want. I always think of it this way. You got to have something to plug into Google Maps, right? For it to take you from point A to point B. But what's so beautiful about it is once you know what you want, perhaps it is, I want 6 figures in my business this year. This is going to be my first 6-figure year, right? You plug that into your internal Google Maps. No matter how many wrong exits you may take, no matter how much you might avoid that blue highlighted path, what does Google do? It always brings you back. And I always think of the universe kind of that way, right? It's always going to find a way, if something is meant for you, to bring you on back to your path. Even if you end up taking some detours along the way. Now it might add some time, and you might have some lessons and experiences that you need to go through along the way, but it's always going to bring you back. So we need to know what we're creating, what we're wanting. Most people know that, although there are techniques that we can use to uncover that if that part is still unclear. You might even know a little bit what the issue is, like the example that we just talked through about, feeling like the strategies weren't working. At a certain point, what I like to do after that is to start with, okay, what is this, the collective thinking, the mindset that is driving where you're at right now in your business? Mm-hmm. Like, what are the thoughts you're thinking about your business, right? Because we know thoughts create your feelings fuel those actions, and your actions are going to create ultimately your results. And that's kind of the dominoes we need to set up in order for you to manifest that last domino, to hit that last domino down, which is your results, your manifestation. And so it all comes back to the thinking, which, that's why I like to incorporate both coaching and hypnotherapy into my sessions, because I realized one tool was not enough. I'm sure you've figured this out here too. That, we could talk about this consciously all day, but then we get into hypnotherapy and the subconscious mind brings something to your attention that you hadn't even considered before. Some sort of, belief you might have carried over from childhood, some sort of trauma you might have gone through that really instilled sort of a block to you. I want to make sure that the path is clear to you. I use a lot of car and travel analogies. My podcast is called Destination Manifestation. I'm kind of obsessed with that thought because it really is a journey to get you to where you want to go, right? And so we kind of have to clear the path. We need to make sure there's no roadblocks there. And that's the subconscious sort of block work. And so that's kind of where I like to go next. I think a lot of people think, oh my gosh, manifestation, we can't focus on it all has got to be positive, la la, woo woo all the time. And, yes, we like to stay positive, but if there is a block or a belief system or a thought that you're continuing to think that it's kind of sucking you back into this quicksand, we need to make sure that you're able to instill and install, a supportive belief that's going to help you reach that place of alignment we've been talking about. And so we kind of got to clear the path first before we can do any kind of the more traditional sort of positive work on top of that.
Yeah, I love the travel analogies because you can visualize it.
It just works. It just works. I keep on coming back to it. It works.
Yeah, I love that. You talked about feeling good all the time. And I know, I'm immersed in this world a lot. So I know, the law of assumption and the law of attraction and, you attract what you are and all those pieces. And I think that something I've heard from clients with manifestation is that sometimes it can make them feel like, oh, if I'm not doing it quickly, then I'm not good enough. And it kind of makes them feel bad. So what's your thoughts on that? Like, I know you just talked about manifestation being a destination and sometimes you go off course and sometimes other things come up and it takes you a little bit longer. And so with detachment, with your manifestations, what are your thoughts on that process when you're doing the work, you have the strategy in place, like you said, you've come home to yourself, you've worked on clearing some of those blocks, maybe you're doing mindset work or hypnosis every single day. Now it's like this waiting game. How do you hold your clients through that?
Oh, this is a thought. We'll talk about those obstacles in the path. It is an obstacle that comes up again and again. Why is this? Here's another travel analogy for you. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? You're like the little 6-year-old in the backseat of the car wondering, where's the manifestation? Am I at the destination yet? Think about this. You are a master manifester. Because when you focus on where is it, you are going to manifest more looking for it. And you're going to manifest not finding it, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's where it comes back to the law of detachment. Because the law of detachment is this sense of, I know it is energetically created. I know I am on my way. And therefore, I am good where I am right now, and I'm enjoying this present moment, and I know I'm getting there. I have that deep internal certainty that this is mine. And therefore, it could take a moment, it could take a year, it could take a decade. It doesn't matter because I'm going to reach that. I know that's so certain, right? And so when we are seeking and looking, it's almost like a carrot dangled on a stick, always kind of directly in front of us. We're never going to get that. We're never going to actually manifest it if we're constantly questioning where it is, because we're just going to manifest more questioning. One of my favorite teachers, Abraham Hicks, always says, the vibration of the problem and the vibration of the solution are two very different things, right? If you're constantly
Hicks, so you're
right,
right.
Yeah. If you are constantly dwelling in the problem, which we might say the problem of it is taking too long, you're constantly looking and searching. You're just going to manifest more looking and more searching. So what vibration do we need to go to? We need to get to we need to get to the vibration of the solution. And the vibration of the solution is knowing, having. And that's where hypnotherapy can really come into practice here, is when we start doing our visualizations. I say, don't wait until it's 3D physical matter that you can see and taste and touch in our 3D physical reality. Guess what? You have your inner mind. You can go visit your manifestation right now. And if you are skilled at hypnosis and you practice hypnosis daily and you develop that skill, it is just as real in your inner mind as it is in your outer reality. Why wait? I love to go visit my manifestations in my inner mind and get to be there and sense it and taste it and touch it and smell it and experience the emotions associated with it while I'm in hypnosis. And that's kind of one way. And, I kind of always poke at my clients a little bit. I kid with them, right? If they're in that vibration of where is it? It isn't here yet. I say, have you been doing your hypnotherapy audio homework? Because I know they haven't. Because if they had, they will have been visiting and experienced their manifestation daily, and they won't be missing it in their 3D physical reality because they're visiting it in the 4D, the 5D of their inner mind daily. And so they know the certainty of it because it is just as real. Just like we talk about, the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between the past, present, and future, right? It's all the same. The subconscious mind is so incredibly intelligent because it knows that what is in your inner mind is just as real as what is in 3D physical reality. We just call this real because, we're human beings and this is where we live, but everything is created up here first. And so let's go experience the realness of it there. That's going to instill our belief and our deep knowingness that it is meant for us. Then the timing, I kind of like to think of timing kind of in two different ways. Timing comes down to how much resistance do you still have on the subject. Theoretically, if you had zero resistance to this manifestation, you were completely detached, law of detachment, it would swoop in real easy for you here. So there's kind of one school of thought there. I also say that the timing isn't up to us. That's kind of one of the pieces that you say, okay, I take the action. I stay in my belief. I stay in my alignment. I stay in my joy. And the universe will take care of the timing. Because sometimes there are some lessons, there are some things that you may think you're not manifesting this thing, but actually it's lining it right up for you. Think about the story I told you about me becoming depressed.
Yeah.
Would I have known at the time that the universe was lining up depression for me so that I could go find my true calling and my successful business and start my hypnotherapy practice? In the moment, it felt like, wow, I'm really misaligned and this really isn't working out for me. But now with perspective, I can look back and say, oh, that needed to happen.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't have discovered hypnotherapy and be on the path that I'm on. So actually, it was part of the manifestation. I just didn't realize it. So when we're in this present moment, we don't have the perspective to know what is in alignment to the manifestation and what isn't. We just have to have that deep knowingness and move forward with that inspired action. And everything else will fall into place and we'll have that perspective once we've manifested it.
Yeah, it's happening for you rather than to you. And also, I really like that perspective around timing too, because I always tell my clients, you can't bypass the lessons. Even with the coach, you're not going to bypass the lessons and you'll look back and be like, oh, duh. That's
you needed it.
Exactly.
And it's it might feel like an obstacle at the time, but it was actually something you needed to learn and grow through. In order, I started so many freaking businesses before I became a hypnotherapist and found the one that was successful and worked. I was a web designer. I did lettering. I was a jewelry designer. I did so many things. And I can't tell you how many of those skills from those other, quote unquote failed businesses that I use in my business here today. And it's like, I like to think about that. I'm like, oh, I had to go through those lessons. I had to build up those skills. I had to gather kind of that skill set to be able to manifest the real thing, the true thing. And that applies, that we see that so much in business. You're continually having to learn. And I know it's painful. I know we don't want to have to do it, but you know what? It's only through that later perspective, when you look back on it, you can realize, yeah, it was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And also just your note around not having it yet. That's something I see that happens a lot with strategy, where, you're like, okay, but what's my missing key with my strategy? Or I have to tweak my messaging and then I'll attract clients, or I have to do this and then I'll have, the perfect client. And it's like, the more you focus on that, the more you're reaffirming that you're not good enough now, or you're not ready now.
Yep.
So I love that shift as well too. And hypnosis is obviously like the perfect way to shift into that knowing and conviction. And I do the same exact thing with my clients, where we are like, okay, every day hypnotherapy, I give them 8-minute audios even to implement. So it's so easy. So I'm loving this conversation. And something else that came to mind that I know a lot of people in entrepreneurship experience, because they go from maybe corporate, where they have a lot of sustainability and safety, to entrepreneurship where, maybe their income fluctuates a little bit. Maybe, they've experienced that. They haven't created that sustainability yet. So one of the top emotions that I see people experience is scarcity. And they could even be making, 6 figures. They could even be making 15K months. And it's still like, well, what if this is all fluke? What if it falls apart next month? What if it, you've probably seen this as well too. So I'm curious from your perspective and like manifestation, and law of attraction, law of detachment, any of those, ultimate laws of the universe. What's your take on scarcity, and how would you help people move through that if it's something they're experiencing right now? Because that's like just feels so heavy. I've been there, and it's just not a good feeling. So I really like the idea of someone having a tangible, piece to take away from this if they are feeling that right now.
You know what tells me that scarcity is something that's completely created in our mind is because I will work with clients who are barely making $100,000 a year and they have scarcity. And I will work with clients who are making $5 million a year and they have scarcity. It is the same exact session, and it just goes to show you there isn't some magical number, folks, that will take away the scarcity. What the scarcity is it is a lack mindset. It is a belief that, oh, this could all go away. And then, that obviously is not in the alignment. So let me give you something tangible here, right? I like to think of the version of you. Some people call it future you, but I don't like to call it future you because that somehow seems to suggest that it is not who you could be right now. It's in the future. Again, it's that carrot that we're dangling in front of us. No, I like to call it manifested me. So I want you to get in touch with the version of you who just has this super deep inner knowing that money will always be there and that they trust themselves to be able to figure out a way that even if they do feel those fluctuations, because those fluctuations may just be a part of their business, it may be just the seasonality of their business, it may just be, what's happening in the world today and trends and where they're at, and feeling that the fluctuation in their income is not necessarily a bad thing. It's like, what are we making that mean? That's just a part of life, but that we can still tune into and know and have that deep inner knowing. I mean, the version of you who has an abundant mindset, that manifested me, that manifested you, how would she be looking at this situation? And what is the delta, the difference between how I might currently be thinking and her or him? And I think that begins to show us and tell us like, okay, what needs to change within my mindset so that I can become more aligned with her, because that's who I'm wanting to create. That's who I'm wanting to be. And I think a lot of it comes down to, I think in manifestation, we think about the shiny objects. I want to manifest this car. I want to manifest this kind of, yearly income or whatever. But I like to think of manifestation a lot more through the lens of identity. Like, who am I becoming? Who am I becoming? Who is that manifested me that no longer questions, even if there was a little dip, that it doesn't allow my mindset to dip with it. Because that's very reactionary, right? If your income dips and then your mindset dips right along with it, you are reacting to what is happening. The version of you who's abundant and knows her abundance wholeheartedly, despite what might be happening in the 3D physical reality. I mean, I always think about like the things 3D physical around us, they're old, crusty manifestations. They're the result of your old past thinking. So what we need to do is we need to have that deep inner knowing that says, yeah, this might have fluctuated today or this month or even this year, but I know I'm on track and I'm doing those things that this is meant for me, and begin to see what that thinking is like. And that just begins to kind of, when you can kind of compare the delta between manifested me and current you, then it can kind of overlap the two. That can kind of show you sort of what direction what things you might need to let go through hypnosis, where you might need to reaffirm and strengthen certain beliefs, so that you can really believe in the truth of your abundance, even if you aren't seeing it with your physical eyes in the 3D just yet. It requires a tremendous amount of faith. It is really the vibration and the ability of faith over fear. And where are you making fear-based thoughts and decisions and taking fear-based action versus where are you betting on yourself and believing in yourself? That was one of the biggest lessons I learned being on, silly reality TV show, Big Brother, right? Was like, when I made it to the end, it was like, I'm betting on myself. No one can take me here but myself. And I remember that got me through some like major competitions, some major wins that I needed to win. Otherwise I was leaving, and it bought me a few more weeks in that house. Was faith over fear. And we have to have a tremendous amount of faith in our businesses to believe in ourselves and bet on ourselves and say, hey, I'm a worthy investment. Because I think you brought up something, Addison, that really matters. Like, especially when you were thinking about like, oh, this manifestation is taking too long. You could also take it one more level. And I think you hinted at this, which is like, and that means I'm bad at it. All of a sudden you've started making it personal. And that's a you mind thing. It's not anything personal. And that's why I like to give the example that like I applied for this show 6 times and I got on the 7th time. And I think a lot of people just look at me and think, oh, she would get on, but I wouldn't get on. And it was like, no, I've experienced both. It's not personal. It's not personal. And I think we need to remember that it's just our thinking. The universe it's not moralistic in the sense that it's like, oh, you've had good thoughts and you've had bad thoughts. Like, no, that's religion. That's other things, right? It's non-discerning. It's non-judgmental. It's just going to manifest and reflect back to you what you primarily think, and not just one little rogue thought. One little rogue thought isn't going to derail you. It's your consistent collective thinking, your mindset, your belief system. And so when you consistently think and believe, I can't have this, something's wrong with me, I'm not cut out for this, I mean, that's what you'll end up manifesting. Unfortunately, the universe is non-discerning. And so that's why we need to build up our belief and betting on yourself and believing in yourself and not taking the little dips and fluctuations or even the failures so personally. Just learning from them, knowing that they might actually be exactly what you needed on your path to manifest what you want.
Yeah. So not making it mean anything about you. And then also I'm hearing like releasing the how, because I think you mentioned like the fluctuations and stuff that can be out of your control. Sometimes it could be just a world thing, right? It could be like, I had one client who around the election noticed like a little bit of a dip, and then her clients were like, yeah, we kind of pulled back during that time because we were nervous. And then, the next month she had a $19,000 month, like just like that. And so I feel like, in that example too, it's like her faith and, releasing the how, and then recognizing, even if I'm experiencing this right now, next month could be huge. And so I really like that.
Yeah. I mean, it's so true. Like, and it can go the opposite way too, folks. Like there might be world events or things outside your control that actually bring you a lot of business. I mean, I'm thinking to myself like, oh, the election results, that was one of my busiest weeks as a hypnotherapist, and everybody put their their programs on hold, and we just worked through the election because there were so many thoughts and emotions around that, right, that needed to be addressed. So I want to ensure that we always look at these things and we think, oh, what if there's an economic downturn, or what if there's this, what if there's that? And yeah, it could in the short term negatively impact your business, but there are also other things that could really drive your business too. And I think it's just reminding ourselves to not take any of it personally. It's part of the law of detachment, just to say, hey, all that I can kind of focus on is where's my mind at this? What are the thoughts I'm having about this? How can I reframe this to be something where I can still maintain my alignment despite what's happening outside of me? Okay, I see the dip. What am I going to make that dip mean? There you can make, the dip could mean, my business is going down the drain, help, right? That's going to create one very different vibration and timeline versus, okay, this is a dip and it's just temporary. And see how notice.
Okay, I have this dip. Let me work on a funnel. I'm so glad I have a little bit of skills.
I'm so glad I have the skills that I know how to do this. Or you know what? This actually seems like a great time to implement this really creative strategy that I haven't really seen anyone doing, but it might set me apart, right? Like, and you know what didn't change? The dip. The dip was the same in both those scenarios we just outlined. It was your reaction to the dip that put you on completely different paths. What's that saying that they say? You can have an airplane that leaves LaGuardia, right? Airport in New York, and it's just 1% difference. Two different airplanes leaving the same airport, and one can end up in San Francisco on the other side of the country, and one can end up in LA, right? Just a 1% difference. So I always tell my clients, like, what's that 1% difference in your thinking that you can apply here? If you can just feel 1% better about that dip, that circumstance, then that's going to put you on a completely different trajectory down the road. It's the difference between San Francisco and LA. Like, it really makes a big difference, even though it didn't feel like such a big tweak at the time.
Yeah, 100%. I love all of that. I feel like this is going to be so helpful for the people.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so.
So yeah, I think it's really cool to take it from the manifestation lens and the vibrational lens. And, I have a very neuroscience based approach, I think. So I think it's really cool to talk to you about this and hear your perspective as well too. So I'm loving that.
From a neuroscience kind of perspective, we know that we have something called the salience network, and it is the network within our brain that tells us what's important. And so you've heard, we talk about the RAS, the reticular activating system in our subconscious minds, that filter that kind of tells us, okay, what's important. We will instill something within our subconscious mind. Let's use the Big Brother example I gave, right? I'm a house guest on Big Brother, right? That was programmed, instilled in my subconscious mind. Well, then when I'm in my conscious waking state, my brain has now received the instructions that is the intention that I want to create, that is what I am building up that belief that I can do. My brain is now scanning for all the inputs that will match me being on that show now. So how do you imagine I show up in my auditions, or I show up in the applications and things like that? I'm scanning for opportunities now. And think if you're instilling in your mind, like, I, am going to hit my first 6 figures this year, 6 figures this year, 6 figures this year. You're instilling that. Your RAS is now filtering out. I think you get somewhat of is it 11 billion bits? You probably know the stat, Addison, right? 11 billion bits of information, right? That comes into your mind, your subconscious mind comes in, but only 40 to 50 bits, not 40 to 50,000, not 40 to 50,000, 40 to 50 bits out of 11 billion. Or your conscious mind, what enters your conscious mind. So think your brain is having to sort out 99.99% of this bits of information you get each second, is having to sort out and say what's important. And that's where the salience network comes into play. It's what's instructing your brain, hey, this is important and she needs to be conscious of this, versus, we can just throw this in the subconscious mind. She doesn't need to be conscious of it, right? And so that's why it's so important for us to reprogram our subconscious mind for our goals, for our manifestations, because we want to teach the brain, we want to give instructions to the brain, hey, this is important. And so when it now becomes those 40 to 50 conscious mind bits to you, then that's when you see the opportunity.
Yeah.
That's where you see the sign or synchronicity. That's what I love. Like people think signs and synchronicities are all just this woo-woo fluff, universal, blah, blah, whatever, which, hey, I'm not knocking it. I love that too. And I do think there is an element to that, but we can also explain it neuroscientifically, which is actually you set an intention so strong in your mind that you have now, it's good fodder to know that your subconscious mind is now getting on board with your manifestation. You start seeing the signs, the things start lining up. That just means that you're now becoming more conscious to the things that match what you're wanting to create. And of course, that's a great sign. That's good to know that the subconscious mind is receiving those instructions. But I love how, like you said, we can explain this from a neuroscience perspective. We can explain it from a spirituality perspective. We're all speaking the same language.
And I think something that is really important about those bits of information that you're talking about is also that dictates your behavior. So your action, how you're showing up in your business, the words that you're using, so I think just for everyone listening to this, kind of think about, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on how it's not working? Or are you focusing on, like you said, I'm making 6 figures this year. I don't care how it happens. It's going to happen to me. And that's going to tell you, what you're going to create this year. So.
And not to become discouraged.
No.
You can't just say this to yourself once while you're in that theta brainwave state in hypnosis and then just look around and be like, where is it? It's in the key is the repetition. That's how we build the neural pathways. It's through the repetition. You got to kind of clear out the weeds of that old path. And then you got to travel a new path so much that it leaves a mark, right? It strengthens that neural pathway system. And so that's why I always say it's through the repetition of it that you're going to build and strengthen these. So don't jump to judgment so quickly, make sure you give your brain enough time to really learn. Just like it would take time to learn a skill, your brain needs to learn that new belief through repetition.
That repetition and emotion. And I think also just realizing that it's work but it's work that feels good. It's work that's relaxing. It's work that, you leave and you're like, oh my gosh, that felt so good. I got to sit with my manifestation or what I'm creating today. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there is a piece where it's like giving yourself that grace and also just making the time every single day to do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I've loved all of this. I feel like we could talk forever, but
I know I could talk about it all day.
But, we could literally talk forever. So where can people find you? Your podcast, I know, is Destination Manifestation, and then maybe just give some insight to where people can find you and connect with you. I also will have in the show notes for everyone that's listening a free Ultimate Manifestation hypnotherapy audio below, so they can download that directly. But where should they connect with you?
Absolutely. If you feel like you could talk and listen to this all day, then you most certainly can. I just published my 50th episode over on Destination Manifestation. That's a great place. And in terms of social media, you can follow me on Instagram. I'm probably most active there. It's Britt.Hoopes. And then if you're interested in giving this a go yourself, like Addison had just mentioned, I created this Ultimate Manifestation hypnotherapy audio, completely full length, 30 minutes, absolutely free. Helps you kind of get a taste of what this is like to access manifested me and become her or him and really align to what you're wanting to create. I guide you through that. And then of course, if you feel like you kind of need some more personalized attention when it comes to these things, I also work with clients one-on-one through manifestation, hypnotherapy and coaching. All of that can be found at BrittanyHoopes.com.
Amazing. I'm excited for people to download this audio because they get free audios from me all the time, but nothing specific to manifestation. So that's awesome.
I'll tell you, I'm just going to straight up admit it. This is the audio I use to manifest Big Brother. It is the exact system that I used. I personally listen to this own audio. I don't know if that makes me weird. Do you listen to your own audios, Addison? Okay, good. I'm not the only one. I listen to this.
My own audios too. And
right? That's the perk of being a hypnotherapist. Hello. You can create your own, right? I listen to this morning and night. I attribute everything I've manifested to these techniques. So, it's great. And it's also going to be a little bit of a taste, later in spring. I'm launching, I'm calling it the Manifested Me Vault. It's a subscription library to manifestation specific hypnotherapy audios, a whole library full of them. And so if you like this one, well, you can know what to expect here come the spring once that launches.
Awesome. Yay. So definitely when you download this and listen to it, reach out to Brittany and let her know your
Yeah, I want to know what you
takeaways, maybe like
manifest.
what you're manifesting, like just have a conversation. I'm gonna download it too.
Oh, do.
Listen to
You'll
it.
have to let me know. I would love to hear what you have to
Yeah,
say about
I'd
it.
love to. Well, awesome. This has been amazing. I always like to ask my guests if they had like one word of wisdom or a quote or something that's just on their mind that they want to share, like a gift for the audience, something to tie everything together, what that would be. Can you think of anything that you're just like, I
Oh,
just want to share this?
absolutely. Absolutely. And we touched upon it a little bit, so I won't go too in depth, but the faith over fear,
Mm,
that's the vibrational shift. We often just have to find, I just want you to get in the habit of realizing, am I approaching this through faith or am I approaching this through fear? Because those are two very different vibrations. And think of it this way, there are very different results and very different manifestations associated with either of
yeah.
those, right? That's the fork in the road you find yourself in. Do you want to go down a faith street or fear street? You know what's going to be at the end of both of those different streets. And so I want you to really get in the habit of making sure you're always being intentional about which one you're going down.
Yeah.
And in the same way, just be in your joy. When I
Mm,
say finding your alignment, your vibration, those words may not resonate with you, but just know that I'm saying joy. I'm
yeah.
just saying joy. And I think we forget as entrepreneurs, like why we start, why we did this. You guys know there's a lot easier paths, right? To go get a job. Like, let us not forget. It would be so much easier and maybe that's my own beliefs talking, which I should look at, but one might argue it might be easier to go and do something else for a job. And yet, no, we picked this one. So be in your joy with it,
Mm,
because I can tell you that when you're in your joy, you're going to see that's going to put you in alignment with what you're creating, with what you're manifesting. And the things are just going to start lining up for you. And it can be so much easier. This can be easy too.
I love that so much. Just like remembering the conversations you get to have every single day, how you get to live to truly do
Yes.
what you love. Like that right there changes your energy and changes how you feel. So I
Think
love
about it
it.
this way. Every time you focus on that, you're not focusing on where is it? Why didn't
Mhm.
the strategy work? Right? Like our focus and attention is our most valuable commodity. More
Yeah.
though so than money, more so than time, more so than energy. Focus and attention, because it's going to create your experience. Don't you want to create an experience of your business of being something where you're 90 years old and in your rocking chair thinking about your life, where you say, wow, like I did that and I had fun while I did it. I enjoyed my life while I did it. And if it's not bringing you joy, I think that's something to look at too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much. I love that. So everyone's moving forward with faith over fear.
Yes, faith over
Awesome.
fear. Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a good conversation. Again, I feel like we could talk for hours, but we'll save them of that. I might have to have you come
Save
back
it
though.
now.
But
Yeah,
thank
that'd be
you
so
so
much fun.
much.
Of course. Thank you, Addison.